Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the panel discussion. The topic for the discussion is the future of banking and financial services. Our distinguished panel comprising the well-known industry leaders from the banking, finance, investment, and technology sectors will debate on the changing dynamics of the financial services sector and how to drive digital transformation to meet evolving market needs. We first invite on stage again Mr. Ali Hassan Musa, CEO of Oman Banks Association. He has been leading the association since 2017 to work towards promoting the interest of the banking industry and collaborating with the regulators on policy and strategy matters. So please welcome. We next invite on stage Mr. Badr Shamfari, Chief Operating Officer of Oman Invest. He is a key member of the executive management team responsible for attaining Oman Invest vision to be an eminent investment group in the MENA region with significant global reach and impact. Please welcome. We next invite on stage Mr. Ewan John McLeod, Chief Transformation Officer for Sahar International. He complements the executive management team in driving the bank's transformation and digitalization agenda. Our next panelist is Mr. Mujahid Azzajali, General Manager IT and Operations, Bank Nizwa. He is leading the digital transformation and innovation project as a part of Bank Nizwa's long-term strategic initiative to deliver the vision to become the digital bank of choice for people in Oman. Our next panelist is Engineer Maqbool Al Wahaibi, CEO of Oman Data Park. He has been the founding team member of Oman Data Park and has been leading the company in developing solutions tailored to address the bank's financial institutions, oil and gas sectors, healthcare, government, education, and professional services sectors. Our next distinguished panelist is Mr. Ali Al-Lawati, Country Leader Oman and Yemen for Cisco. He leads the development of high-level strategy, roadmap, and business case for digital transformation and business growth areas considering cloud adoption, business services, capabilities, security and compliance, cost reduction, merger and acquisition for various customers at Cisco. Our next distinguished panelist is Mr. Hussein Al-Maymani, Head of Sales Banking and Energy at GBM Oman. He's an avid promoter and influencer of digital transformation initiatives in the banking and energy sector with in-depth experience for more than a decade. And to moderate the session, we are now going to invite Mr. Akshay Patanjar, Executive Vice President and Group Managing Editor, United Media Services at UMS. He is responsible for managing a business unit comprising print publications, digital assets, business and B2B event, strategic communication projects, and digital services. Over to you, Mr. Akshay. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and esteemed speakers, a very good morning to all of you. It's almost after a gap of 3 years, we are having over 220 plus strong audience on the floor at the New Age Banking Summit. It's very, very pleasing to see the full packed house today. Coming back to the panel discussion, His Excellency's keynote address and the presentation by Mr. Ali Hassan Musa have already set the tone for the panel discussion today. Before we take a deep dive into digital banking and the fintech, let's have a look at the global macroeconomic environment. It seems to be pretty volatile. Interest rate hikes are happening. Inflation is increasing. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine is not helping at all. There are disruptions in the supply chain globally. And if you go by the recent forecast on the global economic growth by IMF, The rate of growth is expected to come down to 3.6% this year as well as next year, compared to 6.1% last year. Let me start with you, Mr. Badr, on this. How is it impacting the global banking and the financial services sector, and what are the implications of that on Oman's banking and finance industry?
Thank you, Akshay. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. As you mentioned, it is a volatile market. There are many factors contributing to that, from COVID to the geopolitical risk in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and so forth. But I want to take a step back, and as people are comparing the current volatility to 2008 financial crisis, where at that time it was really driven by subprime mortgage. Financial institutions played a key role in that crisis, where out of it came regulations that, if you look at the financial institutions globally today, their balance sheets are very strong, liquidity is there, and they will be able to withstand, and I don't foresee any government intervention or bailouts. That said, with the Fed really fighting inflation and looking at that as a key metric to reduce, that has caused the Fed to increase rates. Markets already factored that in until the year end. That's why you have seen the decline in the global markets, fixed income and equities. In addition to the quantitative tightening, which looks at reducing liquidity. So while naturally, as the economy slows down, of course, you can have a debate, will it go into recession or not? That's another topic. Banks will naturally, growth gets reduced as the costs increases. For example, US 30-year mortgage increased from around 3% to close to 6% within a very short time frame. That means the average consumer mortgage can go up to 80%. And naturally, he has less disposable income to spend in the economy, should help reduce inflation risk. However, there's also risk for banks of defaults and not being able to pay back. If we come closer to the region and GCC and Oman, while we are pegged to the dollar, if you see especially interest rates in Oman, it's not correlated to the changes in Fed, where our cost of funding was high relative to the region, and currently actually in some instances going down. Our main driving factor is oil price, with it hovering over close now to $120 globally, and the expectation is to remain with the supply chain disruptions, to remain within $100 average for the year. We feel banks locally are also well capitalized, have strong balance sheets, and are liquid. And with these factors, in addition to the government's surpluses, the break-even now for fiscal to break even the budget is $67, which is a comfortable position to be in. So at least I don't think we can predict more than 2 to 3 years, but in the next 6 to 18 months, we see that the GCC economies are driven backed by the government spending and projects, are in a good position. That said, we are still coming out of COVID, and the impact is still not fully seen. So naturally, I see banks, while being liquid, will be very selective in terms of where they dispose their loans. And that naturally, there'll be a lot of competition on attractive assets, whether it's government projects or existing clients. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Ali Musa, would you like to make any comment on that, the impact on the banking and finance sector of the global developments which are taking place?
Can I pass? Because I'm not an economist.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Are we going to foresee any increase in the NPAs in the coming days? Maybe Mr. Badr or Mr. Ali Musa, would you like to make any comment on that?
I believe with the regulators, of course, having the provisioning is in place. Naturally, the impact, as I mentioned earlier, is not. I don't believe it's fully reflected yet. There will be more to come. However, from looking at the current bank's books, I believe it is well provisioned. So I don't see a major increase in NPAs. That's in my opinion.
Sure. Mr. Mujahid, as per a recent Accenture report, it was stated that the banking CXOs must focus heavily on reimagining the importance of innovation. At Bank Niswa, how seriously you take up the innovation agenda in your pursuit to become a digital bank of choice?
Assalamu alaikum. Sabahkum Allah bil khair. So in Bank Nizwa, what we did is after our board and CEO, they decided to have a digital bank of choice vision for the people of Oman and for the enterprises. So what we did, instead of jumping immediately to the innovation aspect, we thought we need to take care of a couple of the prerequisites before we jump into the innovation. First, we started working on the change. On the change, basically to make the team be aware of the changes which we are going to do in order for them to be catered and to be ready. And then we started working on the engagement. We made the team to be engaged and we conveyed the vision. And we set out our priorities and why these priorities are required for the organizations, and we made them in alignment with these priorities. And then we started working on, on the internal systems, on what we have, on how do we capitalize on these internal systems. And we started even working on the office premises, because that's very important. We started building capabilities at our meeting rooms, whereby we will be able to, start communicating digitally. Then we started working on our main foundation, our infrastructure. We managed to replace the infrastructure. We made it state-of-art, modern, scalable infrastructure, which can cater to the digital aspects or transformation journey. And then we started working on our digital touch points. We created frictionless digital touch points. And I have a big list, but I will just talk about the one which we recently spoke about and we enhanced. It's on the digital onboarding. So what we did is we managed to create a capability on our app whereby the customers will be able to be digitally onboarded. And that, what we did is the customer goes on the app, he tries to open the account by scanning his ID and then doing a liveness check and then taking a selfie, and that selfie will be checked against his ID. After doing this step, it checks it whether these documents are not fake documents. It has the capability to do that also. So after going through that process, then we managed to also do the checks and balances on the compliance aspects also. Basically to see if the customer is PEP sanctioned, or he's coming from a sanctioned country, or he is a blacklisted country customer. And then we, after this step, the account is created. Basically, he enters all his details and all, the account gets created, and he gets his card delivered at his home without even coming to the bank. So we thought we need to give these services basically to the customer while he is at home, while he is sitting wherever he is, instead of him coming to the bank. So these were a couple of initiatives which we started doing in our in Bank Nizwa. Apart from this, we also worked on instant financing. We wanted our customer, while he is buying his car, he's going to the showroom, he should be able to buy the car within 10 minutes, and the finance is immediately approved. So we did that also. And there are many other initiatives which, if I talk, I think it will take longer. So I thought I will just give some perspective on this.
Sure. Talking of digital onboarding, what challenges did you face, obviously, in terms of meeting the regulatory norms, making sure the customer experience is seamless as well, technologically as well, you are ticking all the right boxes. What challenges did you face in making sure digital onboarding experience is perfect?
There were some challenges actually with the regulator. We had to explain to the regulator how are we securing the customer data. And so if we manage to explain that to the regulator, I mean, we know that they are working on the eKYC and e-signature, but what we said, let's innovate there. Let's send these KYC documents to the customer and he can sign them, and then so that he can get his card immediately without the customer coming to the bank. And we faced one more challenge with the compliance checks, which we had to do, because you need to build APIs which will have to work while the customer is getting onboarded. So that was really not easy. It was a bit challenging, but we had to innovate there, and we managed to roll out that very successfully.
Fair enough. Yvonne, Sohar International is the fastest growing bank in the country when it comes to the large bank. And I believe a lot of credit must be going to what you are doing in terms of digital transformation and the customer experience. How you're creating a superior customer experience by leveraging the digital technologies as well as going mobile first strategy you're adopting. In an age where I mentioned in his speech that half the banking customers don't find it fun, whereas you are managing to buck the trend. Obviously, those were global numbers. Oman is a different market altogether.
So it's a really interesting point. I really, really enjoyed those presentations earlier. And I think the fun aspect is an important one. But if you bring it back to first principles, having a very strong, clear vision, a strong and very clear strategy, that's number one. And from that, we've been able to move our digital transformation forward, prioritizing the right areas. So for example, step one is making sure we've got the right data. Data, because with the right data, we can then begin to infer, inform, and support the customer. And as Mr. Ali was pointing out, work hard to try and meet those demands, those increasing demands of the customer. And in an uncertain environment, which we find ourselves in today, it's really interesting watching how the retail customers of Sohar International are increasingly using the digital channels for the basics. Withdrawal, they're using ATM, deposit, they're putting back into the ATMs, all of the standard basic activity they're doing through the digital channels. And we see every single month the usage of this skyrocketing, hockey stick style. But what we're also seeing is an increasing demand for high-value conversations in branch. So it's the high value, what should I do? I have this money, I see the stock market, I see this, I have this demand, I'm looking at buying a property, et cetera, et cetera. Creating the space for those high-value conversations in branch is really, really important. So what we've been doing is making sure we're encouraging as many of our customers to move to digital. For some customer segments, it's automatic. Some customer segments, the minute you launch it, they take it. Whereas other customer segments, you have to encourage. Sometimes you're doing almost a hip-to-hip engagement. That's where you're standing next to the customer and saying, come with me. Let me show you how easy this is at the ATM. And you don't need to come to branch to withdraw. And you don't need to come to branch to open a savings account. Press the button online. So those kind of educational activities are very important, all aligned to the ongoing strategy of increasing the adoption of digital technologies.
Sure. Talking of the data, fine, fair enough, you are engaging your customers in the right and effective manner. But in terms of data analytics, are you also getting more aggressive in terms of making smart recommendations to your customers?
So smart recommendations that's almost the holy grail there of digital banking, the digital banking experience. And that what we've had to do is make sure we've got that right platform, that data platform to then begin to build upon. So increasingly you'll see a lot more excitement, I think, from customers as they react to many of these services. One of our policies we adopted quite a while ago was to bring new features, new services every single month to market. And it's really interesting watching how customers react to that, how they embrace that. So I think it's important that the industry is reacting to this customer. Omanis are digital. Omanis love technology. Omanis want to engage, and it's really exciting when we launch a new feature, watching that take up. Watching that enthusiasm to adopt. So the next the next series of updates you're going to see from us will be nudging customers, as we discussed, encouraging customers to save. It's one thing saying open a savings account. It's another thing to say, look, try and transfer some money. Should we transfer some money? Click a button here. Let's us guide you on that process. So before we could do that, before we could do any of these, if you like, higher level functions, we had to get that infrastructure in place and that data layer in place. We've got that, so stand by, watch out for the next level of updates.
Sure, absolutely. Let me turn our attention towards our technology specialist, from the service provider side. Mr. Ali Al-Awati, during the COVID times for almost 2 years, we had seen a lot of focus and buzz around digital transformation. Do you think now that we are managing to keep the COVID under control, do you think the momentum towards digital transformation is slowing down, or it continues at the same pace?
Assalamu alaikum. It's working, yeah? Very interesting conversation. So, in COVID, we really saw the push of how organizations, including the banking sector, they are trying to push the digital transformation to become agile. It's more of an agility rather than transformation, I believe so. Because agility will give you to access your resources, work from home, work from anywhere, the collaboration. And if not, most of the organization, I believe they were not ready for it. For example, Cisco, we're ready because we're in nature of that. We are positioned anywhere in the globe and we can access our resources. So that gives them a different posture, the organization, how to become more agile, which is contributing towards the transformation. So I believe that was the main objective at that time. Now, because I hope and I believe so, organization realize that. Now they're taking the transformation in a more accelerated pace. And I hope they can realize it because cost and time are very critical factors which everybody is facing. And I believe there are solutions to try to mitigate or control them. Of course, we cannot avoid them. There are things like the cloud solutions we have. There are things like the automation solutions we have, which really can reduce the cost rather than on ad hoc or bespoke manner of project implementation if there are proper strategies. And at the end of the day, you can set the goal lines of ROI, the business objectives. And we are in Cisco having advisory and professional services, just not give you the talk, can walk the talk. And we did some project to take you to the realization phase rather than only the study phase.
Sure. Engineer Maqbool, when we go to the market and speak to the bankers and other industry leaders, when it comes to cloud services and AI, the first name they prefer is Oman Data Park. So what kind of solutions you are bringing to the market when it comes to AI and the cloud services? And what is its real and tangible benefits of that actually?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for the nice words. I believe we are considering ourselves as partners to the banking transformation journey. We are here to execute. They set the strategy, we execute. We don't make strategies for the banks. And basically, they know exactly what they want, and they know exactly how they approach their ecosystem and the market dynamics within their domain. And to us, we are also acting as observers of what's happening on the other side of the world. I'll give you an example, and we try to adhere with that. So Oman Data Park being there, cloudifying as many organizations in Oman as possible, we focused. And I would like to take this occasion to thank the Central Bank of Oman for releasing the framework, the cloud framework for the financial sector. That's really going to help the financial sector to even leapfrog one step forward from being on a private cloud into a shared cloud, if you like, a shared environment, and they can reduce their cost. I tell you, there is a factor of 30 to 35% reduction in cost if they utilize the cloud services to its full extent. And from there, we also introduced artificial intelligence. And in the AI space, we are sole believers that the banking and the financial sector is going to really make use of it to the best. Artificial intelligence is nothing but providing you with other faster means of predictability. It's all about predictability. As human beings, we predict things, but we don't predict it as fast as machines. So artificial intelligence allow us to predict things even faster and make decisions even faster. And that's why we're working with our partners, and we are working with our with the banking sector very closely to see how we can actually utilize and identify the best use cases that they can start with. And that is where the key point is. Artificial intelligence is an ocean, and if you don't identify your use cases as per your priorities, it becomes really a messy situation that you can get yourself in. So artificial intelligence and machine learning also sits on top of the big data, and for that to function well, you need to have big data, you need to have data cleansing, proper data cleansing, and you need to have quality data in order for you to make use of that artificial intelligence use cases that you want to come forward with. And there are a lot of cases around the world. Moving one step forward from artificial intelligence, allow me to also shed light over the open banking that Mr. Engineer Ali have beautifully positioned it. It is the future. Open banking is no way we can avoid. It is the future. It has to be in our strategy meetings as financial sector. The UK are actually ahead of the game today. The PSD2 that was released in 2015, from the legislative bodies in the UK and the EU now, has really pushed this open banking even further. And what we are seeing also that there is a fundamental shift in the banking sector from being product focused into being omni-channel or distribution channel focused. And to get closer to the distribution channel, you are actually getting yourself closer to the customer journey, what we call customer journey satisfaction. And we are seeing that in the UK, we are seeing in the EU. So basically, give you an example. If I want to buy a house today in the UK or the US or anywhere, I have to worry about not only the financial element of it, where I can get myself financed from the bank, I have to worry about also my utilities. I have to worry about the electricity, the water, dealing with the government entities in order for me to satisfy all those elements in order for me to purchase that house. Guess what? If the banking sector make use of that, that could be a great opportunity for the banking sector, because the PSD2 today allows you to basically open up using APIs, and from there we need to shift the thought as bankers from looking at it from a banking and a financial perspective into looking at it from a customer or a consumer perspective, like me. So they can actually satisfy my journey through the bank itself. So I can actually purchase not only the equity side of the story, but I can do my utility, I can finish everything from the bank itself. So here where we call customer journey satisfaction. And it is yet to be decided who's going to play that role. So I'm not saying there are entities that are doing that so far, but I'm saying that there is an opportunity for the banks to actually shift themselves closely to the distribution channel, using the PSD2 in the UK. Maybe in Oman, inshallah, we will have also a similar legislative component, similar to the PSD2. I think Bahrain is already using PSD2, and some of the GCC countries have started looking at that. So shifting yourself from product into distribution channel, satisfying customer journey, that is where I think the bank is shifting themselves. Now, is it going to be those big giants, the multinational companies like the Googles, the Apples, the Facebooks are going to play that role? Is it going to be a newly disruptors where they can actually sneak in between the incumbent and the consumers or the customers? Is it going to be the banks That is a question to be answered. And I think there is a great opportunity for the banks here to satisfy that element.
Sure. Hussein, GBM has got a very wide portfolio of services for the digital transformation for the financial services sector. How you're helping your banking and finance clients in their digital transformation journey?
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. So, as you said, so we have a broad portfolio of digital services, and how we're really helping our clients in terms of their digital transformation, we can categorize in three areas. So, one and foremost, which is very important, is the API, open banking and integration. And we really applaud the efforts that CBO did recently by issuing this RFP, and we welcome it with open arms, because really we've been promoting the foundation of this technology for a very long time. And as Mr. Ali mentioned, the middleware, in essence, is the integration layer that majority of the banks, they have. However, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, because I believe there's a lot of room for improvement, and as a leader in the integration space, we see a lot of common mistakes that are happening with banks when it comes to dealing with their integration layer. For example, some of the banks are using their internal middleware, exposing it externally for some services, which we're trying to help them, work with them on improving their architecture. Some of the banks, you'd be surprised that they don't even have a middleware. So this is also something that we're working very closely with the central bank and many of the banks. Another area that we help in terms of digital transformation that we've seen demand for is cloud, but a step before entering into the cloud, which is the journey to cloud. So we have a program that we help take banks through the journey. We assess their existing workloads, existing applications, how cloud ready are they, and using certain metrics, we help them on accelerating that path to choose the right cloud fit for them, whether it's public cloud, or private cloud, or hybrid, or even a hybrid multi-cloud. A third area which is very important, and we've worked recently with banks on, is the workflow automation. So a lot of the banks, they're automating and streamlining their processes, unifying them on one platform to basically have processes like account opening, loan registration, card issuance. And we're also trying to inject that RPA into that, optimize it, minimize the human intervention, a shift and a move towards a paperless bank. And we've had multiple cases where we've reached a very advanced stage in that. So mainly these are the three areas. There's a lot more, but the focus is really as well, we need to look at it from what is the demand. Although GBM can play a bigger role, like as you know, maybe you're aware, there's a seamless event happening as we speak today and tomorrow. We've actually sent out a team to scout for trends and solutions that we can bring to Oman and augment with our current portfolio, and help really take Oman's banking industry to new heights.
Sure. Mr. Ali Al-Lawati, he raised a pretty pertinent point, bringing in new technologies and services to Oman market. How receptive are the bankers to listen to you in terms of adopting those new technologies and new solutions, provided compliance is not an issue?
They say yes.
So, very interesting question. I cannot be I cannot be very transparent, but I believe the banks have an open mind, all of us. Yes, what to do?
You got to be diplomatic, I'm sure, right?
See, in any organization there are obstacles, even big international organization, yeah. There are resistances, and we have to admit there are. The change is not simple. In terms of people, in terms of technologies, in terms of process. You used to do something and you want to change it, it's changing the norm in any behavior. So today, if I talk on some technologies we have, which can provide the banks a native cloud infrastructure, which they can cope with their application demand which is changing, which is becoming more complex, which is going to the microservices, if you like, approach, and it goes to the DevOps approach, the CI/CD approach. It's so complex. Now, the fundamental question is the infrastructure ready for the application? Are we having a cloud-native infrastructure to support this application and solution, even we're giving to the mobile? Do we monitor the customer experience if, for example, he push a transfer button that instead of 2 seconds, the transaction took 5 seconds or 7 seconds? Do we know that? Do we know where is the problem? We have all these kind of solutions where you can take your data center to become cloud native. We call it programmable software-defined data center, where you have software-defined networking. We have ACI solutions, and I believe my colleagues know about them. We have software-defined storage. We have the compute. You have the converge, all these tech names, the hybrid converge. I'll not bug you with it. End of the day, it becomes infrastructure as a code, like the application as a code, in line with it. So it becomes end-to-end, from the networking up to the application layer, with all the layers in between. And it's very important, because what's the application today? It's a business. We cannot say it's an extension of the business. Today, that is generating the revenue, and that is going on with the open banking and other initiatives. And all the transaction happening in that business processes needs to be even monitored to create the customer experience. So we have a solution called full stack observability, which gives you monitoring from the time the transaction starts. It goes to the core banking and comes, and it tells you where is the issue, whether it is with the application, with the network, with the server, with the compute, or even with the security. And even that breaks the silo, because today, the banking nature we have, or any organization nature, we have the network team, we have the application team, we have the security team. With this solution, it's amazing. You see exactly what's happening, even up to the application code layer, if there's an issue there. And that, a lot of banks regionally have benefited from that. And we are trying to pursue in Oman about it. But again, the change is not easy. It takes time.
Let me go to the bankers. How easy or difficult it is for you to convince your bosses in terms of investing, pumping in more and more money into digital technologies? That's your job. You have to do that. You know, the technology guys are there to give you the best solutions, but ultimately you have to convince your bosses in terms of the efficacy of that. Would love to hear from both of you.
I don't have that problem. What I have is a visionary CEO showing the way. Our challenge here is running fast to support his vision, his strategy, and making sure that all of us are aligned and pointed in the right direction. So that's not a challenge that I face at Sohar International. If anything, it's making sure that we're running to the pace of his vision and his mission.
You earned some brownie points there.
Well, but come and see me at 6 p.m., right, on an average Tuesday, and you'll see the car park full, you'll see the lights on. We're still running straight into the evening.
So his appraisals are due, I guess, right? Yes, Mr. Mujahid, what do you want to say on this?
We keep receiving feedbacks from our CEOs that the IT cost is going significantly high. But at the end of the day, if you convince them, if you show them why we are doing this, I'm sure, they have always been supportive towards that. So that's not been a problem. But what happens when we have to, the obsolete infrastructure, when the time comes to retire them or replace them, I think there we spend more time in convincing them. But whereas while bringing the new solutions, the digital, building the digital capabilities and all, I have never faced any challenge, because that's the CEO's and board's agenda, and we are just the executors there.
Can I? Oh, please.
I just want to save their backs a little bit. I think I remembered we've been doing this conference for the last 10 years, and normally in this panel you see CEOs. And this is the first time you see the techies are there in the panel. And this shows how actually supportive the CEOs of the banks and the board of directors and the central bank to have the techies as drivers, the driver force in this journey. So I think that shows itself.
So building on that, one of the questions, I think this may have been said before on this panel, I'm not sure. One of the questions that I like to ask my colleagues, and they do get quite bored when I keep asking, and I say, what's our biggest branch? What's our biggest branch? And of course, the answer is not Azeba, et cetera, et cetera. The answer is mobile. From a retail standpoint, our biggest branch, by far, by way far, is mobile. And the amount of transactions and activity happening on our mobile channel alone outstrips anything that's happening in branch and across the branch network. So I think what we see now, and I've been in Oman, this is my third year now in Oman, I think we see across the banks, across the financial institutions, a significant change coming in the, the customers are leading in many cases. Sometimes we're suggesting, we're helping, we're enabling, but that demand is there. So it's not a conversation about saying to the CEO, hi, I want to spend $1 million and we'll get this much back. It's more about where are we going as an institution, what's our strategy, okay, to factor back where are we today and where are we going, and therefore what investments do we need to make. So I think there's an increasingly, we're moving up that maturity curve from a, can I take this software and this is old and this is new? Yeah, I think we're at least in Sohar International, we're past that rather basic conversation and on to the next generation.
Quite well said.
I think it's, if I may, it's about two things. One is when it comes to technology deployment and executive management. One is return on investment. That needs to be clear. The other thing, how does it affect customers and the customer experience? If you are able to convince or present a case based on these two things, I think it's a win-win case.
Customer first.
Yeah.
Customer first.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's shift our focus a little bit towards the other side of the business. Mr. Ali Musa, how do you reorient or orient the bank especially towards creating products which for the consumer's wallet as well as their souls through green banking, embracing green banking and also following ESG in the true spirit?
Thank you, Akshay. So when it comes to new advances like technology, like ESG, which is a new focus, as His Excellency mentioned, climate change, we, through the Oman Banks Association and its academy, we have run a number of sessions on ESG, specifically bringing experts from around the region, including one of the experts that you're hosting from ESG Integrate. Creating this awareness, I think it's still early stages in Oman for ESG, but we're on the path. CMA and CBR have both are eager to progress this. And we as an association, working with banks, with the regulators, and with the society, are keen to advance this as much as possible. I think it's all to do with the customer. Sometimes when we work and when we do things, we forget that it's all about the customer. It's no longer about competition. It's no longer about other things. It's all about the customer. As long as the customer is happy, they're happy then with the banking sector as a whole. Anything that the technology providers do need to actually sell to the bank. How this is going to affect the customer. It's no longer about infrastructure and routers and firewalls and all that and middleware. It's about customer happiness, if you like. Thank you.
Mr. Badr, we started with you. We're going to end with you. Oman West Group has taken a lead in terms of building knowledge about ESG. You are an investor in various companies. Of course, BFSI is one of the key sectors for you. How do you maintain a fine balance between investing in ESG, it's ESG investing, and of course, the bottom line is the desirable return to the shareholders? How do you maintain that fine balance?
As many of you are aware, Oman Invest is a long-term investor. And I think just touching upon what's been discussed about technology and disruption. So that, I don't think anybody doubts that disruption is happening. And we are not really emotionally attached to any of our investments. So if we feel these investments are not adapting, that means it's a matter of time that they will not be as relevant and as competitive. And in addition to the technology part, ESG is a critical area where at Oman Invest, to be very honest, we start with just understanding it. It is a buzzword a lot of people use, and unfortunately a lot don't understand. So we started with the education process from the board. They started Q4 last year, all the way down to the employees. Our purpose statement is transforming businesses to enrich societies. So ESG for us, we don't see that we have to choose either implementing ESG principles or losing out. In the long run, and we're a longer-term investor, we are very confident, and the numbers support this, that our investments will actually do better. And based on a McKinsey study of over 2,000 companies, over 80% value was created where entities introduced ESG principles. And that is now a core part of our operations, our investment process as well. And we look forward to having more entities in Oman adopted. As we are a global investor as well, we see this trend globally. It is even to a degree that even if you're not convinced of the ESG principles, it makes good business sense. Your cost of funding can go down. You can attract multinational investors. And we've seen more often now than before, they really look at what ESG principles and policies do you have internally. So answering the question, if you're a long-term investor, in my opinion, you must have ESG principles in place.
Sure. I think we are reaching the end of panel discussion. Let's open the floor for the questions from the audience. If anyone wants to ask a question. Yeah, can we have Mr. Khalid Ansari in the first row in the corner, please?
Thank you very much. We all talked about customer experience and satisfaction. So let me look at it from a point of view of a major customer, which is your borrower. Borrower being one of the major customers. And within the borrowers, I will focus on business borrowers. Traditionally, in Oman, if you do a credit, or you're making a loan approval, the banks are looking at the business to begin with, but the final decision to lend or not to lend depends upon the provision of personal guarantees backed up by the net asset of the owners or the promoters, and a security of land and building freehold. Now, my question is, how do we move away from that and actually lend to a business based on the business itself rather than lending to the land and building and the net asset of the borrower? How can technology help, and what are the banks doing to move in that direction? Thank you.
Who would like to answer that?
Can I
Please
start? Thank you very much for this question. Of course, the lending decisions by each bank differ depending on the customer case, and they really vary depending on the cash flows, on the assets, etc. So it's not one solution that fits all. It really depends on the business borrower and the reason for lending, and the financial strength of the business, and as I mentioned, the cash flows. Technology does help in that. The Mala is there now. Mala is the financial center. It has an excellent database, a 10-year database or more, from the previous system that we had. It has potential actually now to have more information about the borrower that help the decision making for the bank. It has a credit score And we do have an expert from Malaa will be speaking later on today, I believe, on that. So we do have now a database and a center for financial information that actually will help banks have better decisions in terms of lending. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
I think, just wait a second. I think Mr. Mujahid want to say something on that. We'll take up your question after that.
I was just going to, comment on this because we have introduced this instant financing for auto. We offer auto financing for our customers, and we managed to develop this credit scoring online with Malaa. So it's coming basically, but it's going product by product.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Fatin Zajjari from the College of Banking. Over here, I'm here. I have a question on the fintech platforms. They're so advanced these days, and the whole purpose of the fintech platforms is convenience and also efficiency for the consumer. So nowadays we have fintech platforms which do payment and as well crowdfunding, and these are under different regulators at the moment. So in terms of implementation, for the strategies as we go forward in Oman. So we have payments, crowdfunding. How does it go? Even I heard there are some fintech platforms that does ESG, for instance, offsetting carbon emission. So how does this happen in Oman as we move forward in the next 5 years, if we'd like to say? I hope to have clarity on that. Thank you.
Well, let me take that one then. I think there's a really interesting aspect here for banks, because as well as having your very specific defined vision and strategy, you also, I think it's important to recognize that we don't have all the answers. And we don't have a monopoly. We do not have a monopoly on good ideas. So I think being open, listening, and that's I think we've been doing with regular fintech meetups, embracing it, being as open as possible to the market, learning about what's happening, really with a very, now it might sound weird, but with a very humble reality, right? Which is sometimes not a comfort zone for a banker. But that's us saying, look, what's happening in the marketplace? What trends are we seeing there? And where should we be playing? And in some cases, you don't know the answer. But the first step then is being open, taking that conversation, taking that dialogue, and then looking for that collaboration opportunity. So I think you'll see a lot more activity across the industry in supporting those type of activities you're saying, because what we see from a lot of fintech is they're taking chances, they're introducing new ways of working, new ideas, and I think it's important that the banks are there to support where appropriate. And look for the opportunities to collaborate. So that's one of the things that we've been busy looking at, making sure we've got that open radar to understand what's happening. And if, for example, a fintech wants to contact you, it's really, really difficult, right? Because often what you tend to see is they'll just spray a lot of LinkedIn messages. Well, at Sohar International, we have an EVP fintech. His job is to be open, to be out there, to be looking, to be listening, and that's one of our gateways to the market. So I think the more that we see that kind of open attitude from across the industry, also from fintech as well, I think the better.
Sure.
Can I comment on the crowdfunding? Dr. Fatin, you mentioned crowdfunding. I think that's really interesting. It's okay for crowdfunding to be dealt with by different regulators. That's not unique in the region, depending on the purpose of crowdfunding. So the crowdfunding can be for equity, can be for supporting a certain product, can be for charity, or can be for borrowing. So depending on the purpose of crowdfunding, different regulators may issue a framework for that. We have started in Oman through initially by CMA issuing certain regulations. I think it has potential. It's an alternative to borrowing, and it doesn't necessarily need to compete with the banking sector. It complements it because it has a different dimension. Thank you.
Any other question? Yeah, the lady on the back pile, please, in the last row.
Hi, a very good morning, and my name is Payal. My question is, we are talking about omni-channel integration. How about security? So to build a resilient framework, are we ready from technology perspective, if anyone would like to answer? Thank you.
You're talking my language, omni-channel, absolutely. And the security aspects, the cyber security aspects are absolutely critical. I'm sorry, I didn't see where that lady was. Right down. Oh, okay, hello. I think that you can't do anything until you've got the infrastructure and the cybersecurity aspects fixed. That is business critical. Beyond that, then you can look at making sure things are as easy as possible for the consumer. One login, for example, right? Whether you're a corporate customer, a retail customer, or the like, those aspects from an omnichannel perspective are really, really important.
So I'll just add to it. So we do have omnichannel solution, which we create the first digital engagement through a software called IMI Mobile, which is collaborated with the contact center and collaboration to give the full experience. So today we do have a Cisco end-to-end security for that, up to that layer. And we already are serving several banks globally in this area. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I just add? I mean, they go hand to hand. I mean, together. While you're implementing the omni-channel, you need to ensure that you have a proper cyber security setup in the organization. Once you have that, then only you should embark on omni-channel journey.
Assalamu alaikum.
Just one sec, please. I think Hussein wanted to say something.
Yes, and in regards to the cybersecurity, because we're talking a lot today on open banking and the channels that you're opening and omni-channels. So obviously that poses a high risk, and a lot of threats might rise. So it's a very valid concern. It goes hand in hand in terms of digital transformation. So. At GBM, we've actually worked on a framework, just like we have a framework for integration, we have an actual framework for cybersecurity, and it touches a lot on the aspects end to end. And to top it all, we've recently made an investment in having in Oman SOC. So it was an investment north of around $1 million, where this SOC will be ready, hopefully by the end of the year, where it will have capabilities around a managed detection and response. So we're in discussions as well with many of the banks to help them in that area of security and making sure that they're covered fully.
You have Yvonne and Mr. Mujahid right over here. If you have not met them already on this, please do meet them here. We've got business waiting for you. Any other question? Yeah, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Nahla Belushi from Central Bank of Oman. Thank you for the panelists. I have a question regarding technology and the costs associated with the technology. So how we can ensure that we are utilizing all these IT resources in an efficient manner and ensure that all these high costs are justified? Thank you.
Can I take that question?
Yeah, please.
Thank you for the question, Nahla. It's a great question, and we get that a lot from the market. Our answer usually is managed services. So when having a successful managed services, we look at two things. We look at how to make SLAs better and how to reduce cost. So in simple terms, we can offload the process within a bank or any organization, like their help desk or service desk, and enter into an SLA agreement between us and the customer. And we've seen that, and we have an example where, in fact, we've really aggressively reduced the SLAs as well as the service and the cost with the bank. And it really is about the second part of the question in terms of justifying it. It really is about the ROI, like Mr. Ali said. Working and making the ROI as attractive as possible and enhancing customer experience.
Can I just comment?
بس شوية يخفوا على البنوك يعني.
من ناحية الأسعار يعني. But we deliver quality, right?
Yeah. I think as far as you're adding the IT cost as part of your ROI, return on investment, what happens usually, the projects are started without taking into consideration the IT part. So their IT is blamed always. So I think any such project should take into consideration the full ROI, the full IT cost as part of the project.
Sure.
Just to add on it, and also Mr. Ali and Mujahid mentioned, so as experience globally, we do receive such requests. And the issue happened, cost creep, time delays, and then whatever you're trying to achieve, probably you don't achieve in terms of ROI. Because if you prove the ROI, you prove the customer engagement and business objectives are met, you might get the approval. But that's the trick, how to reach there in a more tight fashion, manageable fashion, and we have done some projects. I'm not saying Cisco, there are many companies. If you give the vendor the accountability up to the ROI level, then you might see the difference. Don't leave it only let you to sell the product. I think this philosophy, we don't have it here in Oman. When you give the vendor accountability or the system integrator, I want a study to reach to that ROI. After 3 years, I'm going to invest 2 million, 3 million. And if you held it accountable, you might see the difference. But if you come to us and tell us, okay, just sell us, and I'll tell you me it's too much expensive, you have done your ROI, it will work, not work, I don't know. As a vendor, I don't know what your ROI you are doing, because I'm just selling you boxes and solutions. You are not involved me in the business strategy. If you involve me from the beginning in the business strategy and make me as a partner to be with you during your strategy development, and I know what kind of ROI you are looking for and what kind of objective you're looking for, I might shift the solution as well and be with you as accountable to prove to the end that, yes, I'm delivering that with you. I believe that shift, my mindset shift is required in our market. Thank you.
Add to Ali and to yourself, I think you should go cloud. And, that's the only way to have a better TCO and IRR. So adding to that, I think the good thing about the technology organization that you have in Oman is that they very much understand the market dynamics. They are very much eager to tailor the solution, as Ali mentioned, in order to satisfy your IRRs, in order to satisfy your digital transformation. And as we mentioned last year, I think the driving force for digital transformation does not necessarily land on the chief technology officer. Nowadays, the chief business officer is the guy who should actually drive this, because it has to be seen in a 360 view. It's not the technology anymore. Technology is just an enabler, but the business, that is where you can recognize the full benefit and maybe sharpen your IRR a little bit in order to get a better TCO in the long run.
Just to, sorry we're taking longer, but I think it's an interesting topic on the cloud. A lot of people say cloud is expensive. You get those answers, yeah? That cloud is expensive. Sometimes you get that feedback. But are we comparing apple to apple? They have NOC 24 hours. They have Security Operations Center 24 hours. They have all the resources required. They have redundancy 99.999%. And if you want to give them to outsource your infrastructure, do you have that to compare your cost with them? Is that a fair comparison? So what is your objective and what are the devil behind the details that are really required to solve? Because globally, the cloud solutions are being adopted, 85% by 2025. All the banks are going hybrid. And that's one of the elements seriously needs to be considered to become faster in time and even achieve a better ROI. Because you will realize your ROI much before, even if it's little expensive. So it will take you 3 years to build, but it will take you 6 months to launch. Thank you.
Just a comment from the bankers, like global banks. So JP Morgan is spending around more than $12 billion in technology, so including fintech. Their profitability last year was 46 billion. So another angle to really come up to speed is looking at the fintechs out there. and investing in them instead of, it might be more costly to do it in-house or go to the traditional players. Now you have, I believe, a broader option, and in my view, going back to the customer wants a service. If that service will be provided by a fintech player, he will switch. There's no, I don't really see a long-term loyalty to any individual bank. It's more towards that service. And if that service is provided by another platform, it's well-regulated, I trust it, I will move to it. So I would, and this we're doing at Oman Invest as well, investing in directly, indirectly in fintech and seeing where we can apply it to our portfolio companies. So that is another approach to really get up to speed on the latest technologies and what's going on.
Sure. Last question we can take. After that, we're going to wrap up. Any other questions from the audience?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Deepika. I'm from Grant Thornton, and I'm the tax director here. I have a question related to tax. I have lately noticed over the past few months that attachment orders have been sent by Ministry of Finance to the clients. And it seems that all the banks collectively block the funds. Like if I would have like 3 bank accounts, all the 3 banks would actually block the bank accounts of the client, which actually my client would, it really hampers their business. So is there an IT technology which would centralize, or where we understand that one bank account has been blocked and the others could be active? I mean, I've been lately seeing that this is where most of my clients are hampered because all the bank accounts would be blocked by all the banks. So I just want to know, is there any IT technology or any regulations which would say that only one bank accounts would be blocked by, if there's an attachment order and not done by all the banks?
Anyone would like to take this question?
Forgive me, I didn't quite understand the first bit there. What was that?
Okay, how it works is like in the Ministry of Finance, if there's an attachment order, it's being sent to the bank, and the bank would block the bank account of the client, and the client would not be able to utilize their account for the ongoing business. Right. So what has been happening is, like when an attachment order has been sent by the Ministry of Finance, let's say to over a couple of banks, all the bank accounts would be blocked by all the banks. So I want to understand if there any IT technology where we would understand that only one bank would block the bank account and not all of them.
No, but Deepika, you are saying like the order has gone to all the banks, not just to the single bank.
Correct, but there's
Correct.
no IT system which says that only one bank account is already
Why
blocked.
it should be? If the ministry is sending an order to all the banks, they need to comply with that.
Correct, but...
am I right?
Maybe the banks can send an alert to the customer, that this account is blocked and all. That does not require any technology in this.
No, what I'm saying is, if there is a central bank of Oman which would say that one bank account has blocked the bank account of a client, and not collective, and the other banks should not actually block the bank accounts.
Perhaps what we could do is in the famous words, should we take it offline? Afterwards, let's discuss that.
Sure, Deepika. Deepika, we have CBO officials here, we got Minister of Finance officials here, we got the banking officials over here. Maybe during the day you can have a direct chat with them on this. Thank you very much for the question.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pretty informative and very immersive discussion today. Thank you very much for that. It has always been an endeavor of UMS Group to keep pushing the agenda for the digital transformation through our digital media channels, alamaliqtasad.com and oyalive.com, as well as through our specialist UMS Digital Services Division, which offers a wide area of digital services for the leading banks and the finance companies in the country. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Hope you'll be enjoying the proceedings of the day as well.